Hello everyone. Today we will have on concept 3 lesson 2. Junior 5, let me ask you a question. What's meant by predator? Predator, it's the animal that can eat or hunt another animal. And the prey, the animals which is eaten by another animal. So if the rabbit eats a mice or a snake eats a mice, the snake is a predator and the mice is the prey. So what would happen when the predators feed on the prey? So of course the energy will flow. How does it flow from the predator to the prey? No, of course no. It flow from the prey, the animals which is eaten, to the predator. So the predator of course will gain the energy as the energy transferred from the prey to the predator. Because the energy in the ecosystem remains as it is, in equilibrium, remains as the same. Inequality, okay? Where the energy can transfer between the living organisms in the ecosystem, and the most of energy also is recycled by the decomposers. How? By the action of the decomposers, it can be decomposed or recycled back to the ecosystem, as we said before. If you look here at the picture, you can see the desert ecosystem. Here in the food web, there is a grass and there is a mouse that can eat the grass. The mouse can be eaten by a snake. Also, the rabbit can eat the grass. And here is a fox in the desert, can eat the snake or eats the rabbit. And here is the eagle which can eat the snakes or mouse or rabbits for some while. So this is a complete life cycle or a complete food web in this ecosystem. Okay. Another question. First, what would happen to the rabbits if all of the grass were removed from the previous food web? Think about it. If there is no grass in the desert, no grass, I know it's a little bit, but if we removed all of the grasses from the desert, what would happen? All of the food web will be changed. The rabbits will not find any type of food, and of course it will die. And so the fox will not find the food because it feeds on the rabbits and snakes. So it will not find the foods, and also the food web will be affected. But here in the question, he's asking only about the rabbits. So the answer would be rabbits would not find any type of food and it would die. And what happens to the eagles? If all of the grass were removed from the previous food, you would tell me, teacher, but the eagles cannot eat the grass. Okay, it cannot eat the grass, but it can feed on the animals that eat the grass. So it will be affected also, but in indirect way. So the answer would be the eagles would not affect it directly, but the rabbits will die, and eagles also would die because they will have less food. And also maybe we will search for another ecosystem so it can find its food. Okay. We have a term called population changes. First, let me tell you what's meant by population. It's the number of the same type or species in one environment or in one area. So population, like our population in the city, is it crowded, massive population, or it's a light population? That means the number of one type of species in one area or in one environment. So a population can changes according to the climate. The word climate, it's the weather for a long short of time. So our weather today is hot, but the climate is hot and we are in summer. I'm not talking about nowadays, I'm talking about in general, okay? So the climate means the weather, but for a long term of time. We have climate changes, and if the climate changes, the population also will changes. So climate is a factor that affects the population. If the climate changes is suitable, so the population of the species will increase. If the climate is unsuitable, the population will decrease. Okay, like your classroom in the school. Supposingly, for example, this classroom is the ecosystem. Okay, it's a definite area. and you are the students are the living organisms that live in that ecosystem. If the weather of your class is beautiful and it's a gentle air in it and a beautiful smell or something, all of the students in other classes want to go to your class and will sit with you because it got a wonderful climate and wonderful weather. Okay, so your climate is suitable. The word suitable means in a good way. So the population will increases. All of the students from all of the school wants to go to your class, junior 5. So it will be crowded, okay? After a while, the weather is not fine. The climate is unsuitable. So the population, most of the students will go out of the class because the weather is hot, there is a bad smell or something. So the population will decrease. Okay, so that's an example for the climate and how it affects the population. If the climate is suitable, the population increases. If the climate is unsuitable, the population will decrease. And here is the definition for the word population. It's the number of organisms of one type of species living in an area. Okay? An increase or an decrease in one species, so this is the population changes, affect the population of other species, causing population changes. One of the organisms that live in the ecosystems is called the seabirds. Seabirds, as you can see here in the picture, they build their nests at the top of the mountains or the mountain's cliff. As you can see in the picture, they can build their nests up there. How they can get their food or how the energy can flow, okay, in that ecosystem, they dive down or they fly down to the sea to feed on the small fishes, which are the main source of the food. So their favorite dish is the small fishes, and they can fly down to the rivers or to the sea to eat that small fishes. And the small fishes feeds on what? They feed on the microorganisms which float on the surface of the sea. So we have the surface of the sea contains microorganisms, which is the main food for the small fishes. And teacher, you're saying microorganisms. What's meant by microorganisms? Microorganisms is the organisms that are tiny or small organisms. They are very small. We cannot see by our eyes. It's a small, very, very, very small organisms that cannot be seen with our eyes. The microorganisms can make its own food. How? They have the ability to make its own food. That's how they can get their energy. That's why we are calling them organisms, because they can get the food and they can make their food. They can survive, okay? Let me ask a question. The microorganisms can make its own food. Is it the producer or consumer or decomposers? Can make their own food, so it will be producers. So they are producers. The producers in the marine food web. They found in cold water because they can survive in that water, in that kind of temperature. They only survive in cold water. It's a very important. So the microorganisms is the food for the small fishes. And the small fishes is the food for the eagles. That's why the microorganisms is very important in the marine ecosystem. Okay? It's the main dish for the small fishes. What would happen to the microorganisms if the climate is changed and the water becomes warmer? We have said that they can survive in cold water. What would happen if the water would be warm? Of course, the microorganisms will move to another area where the water is cooler. So it can survive in another area where the water is cooler. And if the microorganisms move to another area, what would happen to the small fish that live in that area, in our area now? The small fish also will feed on the microorganisms that move to another habitat, or they will die. But most of the time they can swim till they find another place or habitat that contains the microorganisms. Also, what happens to the seabirds? The seabirds in that case will not have the food source because their main food is the small fishes. And that's it for today. Thank you all.